The orbital museum drifted above the sapphire clouds of Keller Prime like a city that had forgotten planets were ever necessary. Ships from every known sector glided toward its docking rings in neat streams of light, their engines painting faint ribbons across the darkness. Merchants, diplomats, scholars, soldiers, journalists, tourists, and professional treasure hunters all arrived for the same reason. The grand exhibition of ancient civilizations opened only once every 50 years, and every rumor claimed that this year's centerpiece was unlike anything previously discovered. Marcus Hale, however, cared very little about history. His freighter had suffered a coolant regulator failure 3 days earlier, and the repair crews insisted the replacement component had to be printed atom by atom. They promised it would only take a little while, which, according to interstellar mechanics, could mean anywhere between an afternoon and the collapse of civilization. With nothing else to do, Marcus accepted the complimentary museum pass that every stranded traveler received. "I should have asked for free food instead," he muttered while stepping through the enormous entrance hall. The translator drone floating beside him chirped cheerfully. "Welcome, curiosity enriches the soul." Marcus glanced at it. "So does lunch." "The museum cafeteria is located." "I was joking. My humor database has been updated." "I somehow doubt that." The drone remained silent for 3 seconds before replying. "I also doubt that." Marcus blinked. "Okay. That was actually pretty good." Thousands of visitors filled the immense galleries. Species from every corner of the galaxy wandered beneath ceilings that projected entire galaxies rotating slowly overhead. Some guests possessed shimmering crystal skin. Others floated inside anti-gravity fields because their homeworld's gravity was almost non-existent. Towering insectoid diplomats clicked politely, while miniature amphibious merchants rode inside transparent water spheres carried by hovering platforms. Marcus looked around with genuine amazement. Then he reached the first display. Behind an energy barrier rested a cracked ceramic bowl. The information panel beside it read, "Estimated age 18,700 years." Marcus folded his arms. "So, ancient soup." A nearby elderly scholar looked horrified. "It is a ceremonial vessel." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "Ancient ceremonial soup." The scholar walked away in visible disappointment. Marcus smiled to himself. The translator drone quietly recorded another entry into its humor database. Further inside the exhibition, excitement steadily increased. Security barriers became thicker. Armed guards appeared every few corridors. Surveillance drones floated silently overhead, scanning every visitor multiple times. Marcus leaned toward one of them. "Either somebody stole a spoon last year or something expensive is nearby." "You are approaching Hall 0, replied the museum drone. "The central archaeological chamber." "I guessed the expensive part." Across the chamber, Dr. Lyra Valen barely noticed the crowds. She stood before a floating holographic excavation model while adjusting dozens of data windows surrounding her. Unlike most researchers, she ignored the politicians and media representatives trying to interview famous archaeologists. Only discoveries interested her. Her appearance drew occasional glances even among the diverse crowd. At first glance she looked almost human. Smooth, pale skin, elegant posture. Calm silver-blue eyes that seemed to analyze everything they observed. Only her ears revealed otherwise. They were long, graceful, and gently swept backward beyond her hair, moving almost imperceptibly whenever she focused on distant sounds. Members of her species possessed extraordinarily sensitive hearing, making noisy conferences something she quietly endured rather than enjoyed. One junior researcher hurried toward her. "Dr. Valen." She looked up. "Status." "Every scan matches yesterday's readings." "No change, none," she sighed. 8,000 years without activity. "The council still expects a demonstration." "They'll receive one." His expression brightened. "You solved it." "No." She glanced toward the enormous object dominating the center of Hall 0. "They'll receive another demonstration that we still know absolutely nothing." The junior researcher laughed despite himself. "You shouldn't say that in front of the council." "I never do." "You think it constantly?" "That is significantly safer." The object towered nearly 6 meters high. Its surface appeared to be carved from flawless black stone, yet every attempt to identify the material had failed. It reflected no light naturally, absorbed nearly every scanning frequency, and possessed no visible seams despite clearly being artificial. It had been recovered beneath the buried ruins of an extinct civilization whose language remained only partially translated. For decades, scientists had named it the silent relic because silence was all it had ever offered. No energy, no movement, no response. Governments had spent fortunes attempting to activate it. Nothing happened. Visitors crowded around reinforced observation platforms while historians explained the artifact's discovery. Marcus listened for nearly 30 seconds. Then he whispered to the translator drone. So the summary is. The drone projected text, unknown builders, correct, unknown purpose, correct, unknown technology, correct, unknown age, correct. Marcus nodded, so everyone gathered from across the galaxy to admire professional uncertainty. Several nearby visitors struggled not to laugh. One historian glared at Marcus over his glasses. Knowledge begins by admitting ignorance. Marcus smiled. Fair point. The historian seemed prepared for an argument. Instead, Marcus simply shrugged. I fix engines, and if I tell customers I have absolutely no idea why their reactor exploded. He paused. They usually become less philosophical. Even the historian chuckled before catching himself. Lyra, standing several meters away reviewing sensor data, heard the exchange perfectly. Despite herself, the corner of her mouth lifted. One of her assistants noticed. Doctor. What? I think you smiled. I certainly did not. You absolutely did. It was a muscle adjustment. Your ears moved. They are unreliable witnesses. The assistant wisely ended the discussion. Marcus continued wandering around the observation platform. Unlike everyone else, he never stared directly at the artifact. He studied the engineering surrounding it. Power conduits, containment generators, sensor arrays. Emergency bulkheads. The translator drone floated beside him. Observation, they're feeding enough electricity into those scanners to illuminate a moon. Correct, and still getting nothing. Correct. Maybe the rock just wants privacy. The drone processed this. Privacy is statistically unlikely. So you're saying there's a chance. Meanwhile, Lyra finished recalibrating another sensor package. Again, nothing. She had devoted 7 years of her career to studying the relic. 7 years, not even the faintest anomaly. She closed another disappointing report. Then something unusual happened, not with the artifact, with one visitor. Marcus absent-mindedly stepped closer to the outer safety line while trying to read a maintenance label attached to one of the containment emitters. He frowned. They installed these backwards. A nearby technician overheard him. Excuse me. The cooling vents? Marcus pointed casually. They're exhausting toward the sensor array. The technician blinked. You're right. Another engineer hurried over, then another. Within seconds, 3 museum technicians were quietly arguing because the random cargo pilot had identified an installation mistake none of them had noticed. Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. I wasn't criticizing. No, one engineer admitted. You were correct. Marcus smiled awkwardly. I was hoping you'd say I was wrong. At that exact moment, he took one more step, nothing dramatic, just one ordinary step. The silent relic awakened. A single line of blue light appeared across its surface. No one breathed. Another line emerged, then another. Ancient symbols ignited one after another, racing across the black monolith like rivers of living stars. The chamber shook. Every scanner screamed simultaneously. Gravity flickered. Several hovering display drones abruptly lost synchronization and bounced harmlessly into one another before pinballing across the ceiling. One security robot announced calmly, "Please remain calm." It immediately drove straight into a decorative pillar, recovered itself, turned, drove into the same pillar again. "Please remain calm." The lights throughout Hall 0 dimmed as unimaginable amounts of energy flooded into the artifact. Scientists stared in frozen disbelief. Lyra's data screens exploded with readings. Impossible readings. Energy values exceeding every previous measurement. Her breathing stopped. No, the artifact had remained silent for over 8,000 years, yet now it was singing not through sound, through light, through mathematics. Through patterns older than every living civilization. Marcus slowly looked behind himself, then at the glowing monolith, then back at the engineers. He raised both hands. I swear I only walked over here. Nobody moved. The chamber had become so quiet that the hum of the containment field sounded deafening. Marcus slowly lowered his hands. I feel like this is one of those moments where everyone assumes it's my fault. No one answered. Hundreds of eyes remained fixed on him. Then every security alarm in Hall 0 activated at once. Red emergency lights swept across the chamber. Massive blast doors began sliding down over every exit. The translator drone floated upward. Attention, Hall 0 has entered archaeological containment protocol. Marcus frowned. That sounds expensive. It generally is. Am I being charged? Unknown. I'd really prefer no. A squad of armored security officers rushed into the chamber with magnetic rifles raised. Their commander stopped several meters from Marcus. Nobody approaches the artifact. Marcus pointed awkwardly toward the glowing monolith. I think we're a little late for that. The commander ignored the remark. Step away slowly. Marcus obeyed without argument. The instant he took 2 steps backward, the light covering the artifact dimmed. Another step. Half the symbols vanished. One more, everything went dark. Silence returned. Every display around the chamber showed identical readings. 0. An elderly physicist whispered almost reverently. It stopped. Someone looked toward Marcus. Bring him back. The commander frowned. We're not conducting experiments. A museum director hurried across the chamber, nearly tripping over his ceremonial robes. We absolutely are conducting experiments. Without authorization. It just authorized itself. Several researchers nodded in agreement. Marcus sighed. I suddenly miss repairing cargo engines. Lyra never took her eyes off the artifact. Her mind replayed every measurement collected during those impossible seconds. Nothing made sense. The activation sequence hadn't matched any known power source. No detectable radiation. No quantum instability. No hyperspatial resonance. It was as though reality itself had briefly remembered something ancient. She walked toward Marcus. Security immediately blocked her path. Doctor, I am lead archaeologist. No contact. I need to ask him a question? No, she looked at the commander. If this object has waited 8,000 years to react, wasting another 10 minutes because of procedure borders on criminal stupidity. The commander hesitated. The museum director nodded, approved. The guard stepped aside. Marcus watched her approach. For the first time he noticed her long ears. Oh, she stopped. Oh, I wasn't expecting. My ears, exactly. She raised an eyebrow. What were you expecting? Marcus considered the question. Honestly, yes, I didn't have a plan after hello. Against every expectation she laughed, only briefly, but genuinely. So Marcus continued, I'm Marcus. I know. That's either impressive or concerning. Both. She activated a small holographic recorder. Dr. Lyra Valen, nice to meet you. I wish it were under less unusual circumstances. I usually introduce myself without awakening prehistoric monuments. I assume. Marcus looked around the sealed chamber. So, what exactly happened? She answered immediately. We were hoping you would tell us. I walked. You walked, I breathed, you breathed. I made one observation about ventilation. I heard, and then your giant mysterious rock started glowing. It is not a rock, I apologize. He nodded respectfully toward the artifact. Your giant mysterious not rock? Another laugh escaped before she managed to suppress it. Several nearby researchers exchanged confused glances. They had worked with Dr. Valen for years. Very few had ever heard her laugh. One technician approached carrying a portable sensor array. Doctor, she accepted it. I'm going to ask you something unusual. Marcus looked around. I feel like that's become today's theme. Would you mind approaching the artifact again? Marcus stared. You've known me for, what, 30 seconds? Approximately. And already you're asking me to walk toward the galaxy's creepiest object. Scientifically speaking, that's still creepy. She almost smiled again. Please, Marcus shrugged. I suppose everyone already thinks I did something. He stepped toward the containment platform. Nothing happened. Another step, still nothing. Researchers watched every sensor desperately. 5 meters, 4, 3, the artifact remained dark. Marcus stopped. I broke it. Nobody answered. Then one more casual step. Blue light burst across the surface again, this time even brighter. Gasps echoed throughout the chamber. Symbols spread like flowing rivers beneath polished black stone. Invisible energy rolled outward. Every electronic display flickered. One maintenance robot suddenly abandoned its assigned task and began enthusiastically polishing the commander's boots. The commander looked down. Why? The robot cheerfully replied, maximum cleanliness improves operational effectiveness. I'm wearing combat armor. Combat cleanliness achieved. Marcus couldn't help laughing. Even several guards failed to remain serious. Meanwhile, Lyra's instruments recorded impossible data. Every symbol appearing on the relic corresponded to mathematical structures found nowhere in known civilizations. The patterns evolved continuously, not randomly, purposefully, she whispered, it's communicating. Marcus looked at the glowing surface. I don't speak, glowing, it may not require language. What does that mean? I don't know, you scientists say that a lot, because reality insists upon inventing new problems. Suddenly, every holographic projector surrounding the artifact activated simultaneously, not because anyone commanded them, because the relic did. Light gathered above it. Thousands of tiny particles assembled into an enormous three-dimensional star map suspended over the chamber. Visitors collectively forgot to breathe. Entire sectors appeared that did not exist on modern navigation charts. Constellations rotated. Ancient travel routes illuminated one after another. Then, one section flashed, bright gold. Every sensor immediately identified coordinates. No known civilization occupied that region. One researcher whispered, those systems were destroyed before recorded history. Another shook his head. They're empty. Lyra disagreed. They aren't empty. Everyone looked toward her. They've been hidden. Silence followed. Marcus scratched his head. I have absolutely no qualifications to argue. He pointed at the hologram. But that definitely looks intentional. One navigation expert quickly compared the projected map against current galactic databases. His face turned pale. The stars, what about them? They're older. Marcus blinked. I'm sorry, the expert swallowed. The stellar positions match astronomical calculations from nearly 9,000 years ago. No one spoke. The hologram wasn't displaying space as it existed today. It was displaying the galaxy as someone had seen it thousands of years earlier. Then another change occurred. The floating stars rearranged themselves instead of navigation routes. Buildings appeared, cities, entire civilizations made from shimmering light. Gigantic towers stretched toward impossible skies. Rings encircled planets. Structures larger than moons drifted peacefully through space. Every projection moved naturally. People walked, vehicles flew, clouds formed. It wasn't an animation, it felt like a memory. Marcus stared upward. I take back everything I said. Lyra quietly answered, about what? The expensive rock? Without warning, every holographic figure stopped moving. They all turned simultaneously toward Marcus. An icy silence filled Hall 0. The projected people simply watched him, thousands of them. None blinking, none speaking, then every figure bowed, at exactly the same moment. The museum lights flickered again. One historian fainted dramatically. The maintenance robot polishing boots applauded for reasons known only to itself. Marcus slowly looked around. I would like to officially state, he swallowed, that I have never met any of these people before. No one laughed this time, because nobody understood what they were witnessing, least of all Dr. Lyra Valen. For the first time in her career, history itself appeared to be looking back. 3 days later, the museum no longer resembled a museum. Its docking rings were surrounded by military cruisers from 6 governments, scientific vessels from dozens of universities, diplomatic transports, and enough surveillance satellites to observe a grain of dust drifting through vacuum. Marcus looked through a reinforced observation window. I've seen quieter food courts. Lyra stood beside him. You've attracted political attention. I repaired cargo engines last week. You activated an 8,000-year-old artifact. I preferred cargo engines. She almost smiled. You keep saying that, because they explode in predictable ways. The silent relic stood inside a newly constructed containment chamber. It had not spoken again, it had simply waited. Every time Marcus entered the room, faint blue symbols appeared. Every time he left, darkness returned. Thousands of experiments produced exactly the same result. No one could explain why. A council representative entered. "We have reached a unanimous decision." Marcus blinked. "That sounds dangerous." "You and Dr. Valen will investigate the coordinates. Just us, you will have a research vessel and an escort fleet." Marcus relaxed. "So not just us." "No, good. Because if the mysterious ancient civilization starts asking difficult questions, I'd like someone else to answer first." The representative failed to understand the joke. Lyra did. An hour later, the research vessel Horizon crossed into hyperspace. Unlike military ships, the Horizon had been built for exploration rather than combat. Laboratories replaced missile bays. Observation domes overlooked weapons systems that had never been installed. Marcus wandered through engineering while technicians prepared the engines. "This feels familiar." One engineer looked up. "You work on freighters?" "Mostly." "Please don't improve anything," Marcus laughed. "I've developed a reputation already." The museum sent reports. "What did they say?" The engineer checked his tablet. "Avoid allowing him near unidentified technology without supervision." Marcus sighed. "That seems fair." Several days later, the Horizon emerged from hyperspace. Silence filled the bridge. The coordinates indicated by the relic lay ahead. Nothing appeared on sensors. No planets, no stations, no debris, only a dying nebula surrounding a fading star. The captain frowned. "There's nothing here." Lyra examined the readings. "No." She looked toward Marcus. "The artifact." Marcus carried the relic's portable synchronization module into the bridge. The moment he approached the main viewport, the crystal awakened. Blue light spread across its surface. Outside, space changed. The empty nebula shimmered. Light bent unnaturally. Something enormous emerged from invisibility. Gasps echoed throughout the bridge. An artificial world slowly revealed itself. It surrounded the dying star like a colossal ring. Continents covered its inner surface. Cities stretched farther than planets. Ancient structures floated around it in perfect silence. Marcus stared. "I am officially done calling things rocks." The captain whispered, "Impossible." Lyra quietly answered no. She couldn't stop looking. It was simply waiting. The Horizon approached carefully. No weapons activated. No defenses appeared. Instead, a single corridor of golden light opened across the ring. Almost like an invitation, the captain looked toward Marcus. "I suppose we follow." Marcus shrugged. "If they wanted us gone." He pointed toward the enormous structure. "I assume we'd already be extremely gone." The ship entered. Every system functioned perfectly despite 8,000 years of abandonment. Power flowed. Atmosphere remained stable. Artificial sunlight illuminated vast gardens untouched by time. No dust, no decay, everything appeared maintained. "Who's maintaining it?" whispered one scientist. No one answered. The central archive welcomed them with silence. Millions of crystalline columns extended beyond sight. Each contained moving lights, memories, histories. Entire civilizations preserved inside living data. As Marcus stepped forward, the room awakened. A calm voice echoed everywhere. "Final witness confirmed." Every scientist froze. Marcus looked behind himself. "I think it's talking to me again." The voice continued. "Genetic verification unnecessary. Behavioral verification successful. Cooperative response achieved." Lyra frowned. "Behavior?" The archive answered immediately. The individual consistently demonstrated curiosity before authority. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "I didn't know I was being graded." The evaluation required 8,126 years. Marcus nodded slowly. "I appreciate the thoroughness." The voice almost seemed amused. "Humor remains present. That is favorable." Lyra stepped forward. "Who created this place?" Light gathered above the archive. Ancient figures appeared. Not recordings, interactive intelligences reconstructed from preserved memories. They resembled none of the modern civilizations. "We were the first accord. We united when others chose conquest. We preserved knowledge rather than power." Another figure continued. "The galaxy entered repeated cycles. Empires rose, they erased history, they manufactured enemies, they repeated identical wars. Images surrounded the researchers, worlds burning, libraries destroyed, historical records rewritten, children taught lies that became future conflicts. The archive spoke again. We refused participation, so we disappeared. Lyra whispered, not destroyed. No, we chose absence. Marcus slowly understood. You hid. Correct. Until someone found you, until someone worthy found us. He looked genuinely uncomfortable. I think you've got the wrong person. Another figure smiled. No, we selected no species. We selected possibility. The room changed again. Thousands of historical moments appeared. Members of countless civilizations had discovered clues leading toward the archive. Every single one attempted conquest. Ownership, domination, none succeeded. Marcus frowned. So why me? The answer surprised everyone. You approached without desire for power. You expected nothing. You laughed. Silence followed. The archive continued. Those who seek weapons cannot receive memory. Those who seek truth may. Lyra closed her eyes. 8,000 years. The greatest secret in history had never required intelligence. It required humility. Suddenly alarms erupted across the horizon. The captain's voice echoed through communicators. Incoming fleets. Military governments had followed them. Dozens of warships emerged outside the ring. Demands filled every communication channel. Transfer control. Surrender the archive. By authority of, the archive interrupted every transmission. Authority acknowledged. Request denied. Outside, weapon systems powered up. Marcus sighed. Here we go. He accidentally leaned against a nearby crystalline pillar. Immediately the entire archive glowed. Thousands of defense satellites awakened across the artificial world. The fleets outside instantly found themselves surrounded by elegant machines older than recorded history. Not one weapon fired. Instead, every hostile vessel lost engine power simultaneously. Every cannon shut down. Every missile became harmless metal. The captain stared at his console. They've disabled every fleet. Marcus slowly stepped away from the pillar. I touched another ancient thing. Lyra looked at him. You truly must stop doing that. I wasn't trying. I believe you. That somehow makes it worse. The archive addressed every ship. Violence unnecessary, truth sufficient. Before any government could recover, the entire archive activated. Every crystal illuminated simultaneously. Countless beams of light shot into space. The Horizon's communication officer gasped. It's broadcasting. To whom? Everyone, across the galaxy, universities, homes, museums, government archives, schools, research stations. Every receiver capable of accepting information suddenly filled with identical transmissions. The complete history of the First Accord, unaltered. Every erased civilization restored. Every fabricated war exposed. Every stolen achievement credited to its true creators. No government could censor it. No empire could rewrite it. Because everyone received everything at exactly the same moment. Silence followed, not only inside the archive, across civilization itself. Days later, the fleets departed peacefully. Scientists remained, not to seize technology. To study history together, universities that had competed for centuries began exchanging researchers freely.